This is the final activity of this conference, except our most awesome and useless closing conference. We do slides for it now. Yes, these are the most unprepared slides you will ever see. And this is lovely that this activity now will be completely without slides. There was only one slide. We are doing this experiment for the second time. We once had a panel. It was pretty nice, I guess. And we decided to close this conference with, of course, talking about AI. What else can it be? Not Java at all. It's a Java conference, but of course, it's AI. So it's going to be 15 minutes as well. Then we're going to do the closing. We're going to prepare the slides, maybe. So as far as I know, there will be a moderator, Ken Fogel. It's a great honor for us to have him as a moderator. And there will be a microphone in the audience. The biggest guy, volunteer of the conference will be with it. So I guess Ken and other people will moderate. And if you want to ask a question, if you're brave enough, the guy will be there. Okay, warm welcome, this wonderful panel. Thank you.
So, thank you all for coming. We were talking out in the hall and we figured there'd only be 5 of you left as everybody went home. So we're really excited to see you. We feel bad for the people at the far end. We're really a lot taller than you see us, so you could come towards the center. The name of this session is called The Future of Java in the AI World. So you're looking at the only slide. There's no live coding. This is about what we up here see AI as affecting our role as Java developers. Are we still going to have a role? What is going to be the future? We're at the very beginning of this, right? We've seen what AI can do in entertainment, in other areas, social media, kind of scary. But what is it going to mean to us? So let me just quickly introduce everyone here. And some of these people I've just met today. So there's Milan. Nice. There's Jonathan. There's Pasha.
Hey, everyone.
I've got the names wrong. Raphael at the end. There we go. Actually, some of these people I've known from other conferences and so on. So I will begin by just saying a few things and let the real experts talk. We think about AI as going to take our jobs. And I have to tell you that my feeling is it's not going to take our jobs, it's going to change our jobs. That we are going to end up working alongside AI as opposed to being replaced by it. So think about that. And can we start with Milan, who gave a great presentation earlier on actually coding to AI?
All right, thanks. I don't know, to be honest, that's the common belief, I believe, at this point, that and if you are a software developer, that's what you want to believe, right? I mean, anyone tells you something's going to take your job, what do you want to say? Like, yeah, of course. Like, no, you want to believe that it's going to change your job. Honestly, I have no idea because I've been in software development industry for close to 30 years or maybe even more than 30 years now. I've never seen things changing that fast, like in the last 2 years, right? So I would be very careful stating things there. Like, we literally live in a world where, like, a year ago, you would bet that AI cannot do something, and it can do it today, right? So anything we bet today that AI cannot do in 1, 2, 3, 5 years, I think it's irresponsible. But so yeah, that's the long answer to that could be like shortened to, I wouldn't be surprised. I hope Ken's right. I hope this is gonna just change how we work. But if it turns out it actually takes our jobs, it wouldn't be much of a surprise to me.
Jonathan.
Who has attended my talk? Shout, shout, because I think we are very sleepy now. Who has come to my talk? What? Who? Okay. Anybody can repeat my sentence? The one thing that I've said during my presentation is the one thing that you should keep in your mind. What? What else? Time, not confidence. So I think my point is that AI is going to give us time, and it's going to change, as Milan said. It's going to change our role, but it's not going to replace us. So we are going to give more value to the chain. Also, it's a trend. Anybody remembers the blockchain trend years ago? Exactly. So I've worked in this for more than 30 years now, and I've seen trends coming, going, and more or less everything remains the same. Things are changing, and I think AI is changing, but it's part of us to make the change something valuable and not just simply a trend that we are just using what AI is vomiting and putting in our products.
I am also quite calm about our future with AI. I don't think AI will go anywhere. The other thing, yeah, blockchain, it went away. I didn't hear about it for a long time already. Yeah, some people work at crypto startups or so, things like that. It won't happen to AI. But I'm very calm for you and frankly for myself, because AI inevitably is somewhere in the middle, because it learns the best things and learns from the worst things, and it can't distinguish them, and there is no way for it to distinguish it, because it's not like, I don't know, it's not sonar to understand what's a good code and what's a bad code, and it doesn't have sonar built in. It's also not Java, which can understand that we can compile this code and we can't compile this code. It is average. And you all here are probably above average, otherwise why would you care to come here, right? As well as me, as well as myself. I think I'm above average, and it makes me better than AI today and probably tomorrow too. And then we'll see. But I wouldn't recommend my children to go and work in IT.
Well, it was mentioned that things never changed so fast as they do now. But I very well remember when I was much younger than I am now, I made my first money as a web designer. And that was in the times when you would write HTML by hand. And that was common, and that was the only way to design a web page. And then Macromedia released Dreamweaver. And everybody said, whoa, now web design and building web pages manually will not be a thing anymore. People will buy Dreamweaver, they will draw up their layout and put in the content and upload that. And obviously that has transformed how web design looks. But as you all know, web design is still pretty much alive and a profession today, despite that web design is a much more complex topic today than it used to be. And I think that is in a way a hint on how our profession will be transformed, because AI is around already. It's been around for 2-3 years. We're all still here. We're still able to afford a conference ticket to come here. And like as it was said, I don't think anybody understands or knows how our job will look like in 10 years. But even without AI, it would have changed drastically. And I think anybody who's working in any job has to expect changes. If you're a shoemaker, you have to expect changes in industrialization. There's still shoemakers. Their job just has changed drastically. So yeah, we'll have to see, I guess, and be around for that. And we can just discuss how we think it's going to be like, but we'll probably be wrong. So if this is watched, then it's going to be the IBM analogies where we're probably off by quite a lot. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
It's fun to listen to all these youngsters up here who talk about they started 30 years ago and I started 41 years ago. So the question now is, you know, we have this thing called AI. We have people who have companies, businesses are going, so do I spend a lot of money and get a subscription to an AI and let go of my programmers? Or do I add to my programmers an AI? Thoughts on that? We'll start at the end.
Well, I think people already do that, have the tools ready, and that's still cheap enough, and it's still like the startup phase of a technology where things are heavily subsidized and very cheap. I think at some point the prices for these products will increase by a lot, which will then really show how valuable they are because they are resource intense. However, like I'm a consultant, I'm doing like technology on the side as open source, but my main job is actually like anybody's job, sitting in meetings and extracting the actual requirement from customers. That part, which is the main part of my job, I don't see how it will change. I do, however, see that at some point I will use AI more to maybe sketch out something, create prototypes, maybe accelerate that, because I might be able to sit in a meeting and show how a feature might work and then fine-tune it. I think the job will at some point go further towards quality assurance. That's also what makes me optimistic about Java. Java is made to read, not to write it fast, which will help me to actually assure the quality of a program. I see my wife, she's an electrical engineer. They do a lot in Python. They use AI a lot, and that has transformed the full approach to it, because my wife cannot really program Python, but she generates it, and then she can adjust it, so it lowers the entry barrier. But I don't really see that to be the case for Java, which is mostly used for enterprise apps. So my best guess is at some point that it will be used for prototyping, then there will be a quality assurance phase where you will rewrite a lot of the AI-generated code to make it more canonical, and then we'll see if AI catches up to be even further valuable at some point.
It is a very nice bridge to from what I said and to what I'm going to say. As I said, I am not going to recommend my children to go in at least programming, because I think it should be a hell of a ride to be a junior developer when there is JetBrains, Juni, Windsurf, Cursor, and other Augment and other tools. I tried some of them. They work very close to how junior engineers work. They do understand basic requirements. One day they probably will understand complex requirements, and you won't need to sit in meetings because they will be able to understand and transform them into a code. We don't know. But for junior developers, it's really hard. If I'm a business and I'm going to think about hiring a junior developer, why would I do it when I can just pay for junior subscription, which is what, like 200 euros a year? It will be 2,000 euros a year. It's still significantly cheaper than junior developer. And this is the part I'm afraid of, and this is the part of an answer. Like, will we hire people? But eventually, I had a very interesting chat with Simon Martinelli about it. When Juni generates a code for me, it is deeply imperfect. It needs a lot of refactoring. It needs a lot of performance optimization. It needs, well, it needs to be fixed. It asks to be fixed. And Juni can't do it because it doesn't know how, because, again, it's average, and I'm above average. So we will always need these people above average level, and I think that at some point we'll tell, okay, we are actually ready to invest some time and money into teaching people to be at least middle or better senior developers for them to be able to fix errors of AI. But probably we won't need so many developers anymore, because developers will be drastically more effective and efficient.
Well, I think with companies it's hard to know, because what we think it's the good way of doing things, it's not most of the times what companies are doing. Sometimes they are more focused on short-term decisions, right? So we all remember all those companies that were outsourcing projects to other countries just because it was cheaper. But then they needed to hire a lot of consultancies to fix a lot of issues, a lot of requirements implemented the wrong way. Nowadays, I assume that there are consultancies being hired to fix what Copilot has generated, just because they simply submit those changes. So it's interesting how the same system is going to feed itself. So for one point, we are going to need less developers, but for the other point, we are going to need more experienced developers. What I see the problem here is, in order to be an experienced developer, you need to experience, you need to fail, you need to fix, you need to understand, you need to use your brain. But the problem is, if the young developers are starting using too much AI without following this process of failing, understanding, fighting with documentation, going to the GitHub repository in order to understand a library, playing in their laptop, they just simply ask Copilot, write this. Are we going to have senior developers in 5 years?
It will be us. It will be more expensive.
Well, I pretend to retire someday, so...
I do not.
Okay. So I assume that this is going to affect. So we need to think about, in our companies, how are we implementing AI? Because it's not only the short term who is being impacted, not only the result, but also the medium term that is going to be impacted by the usage that we do now.
I'll try to be a little controversial. So I assume you all write tests to your code, right?
Sure.
Okay, so what happens when you run a test and it's green or it's red? Right, you need to fix the test or you need to fix the code. It's green, you move on. It's deterministic, right? Let's expand that to code coverage. You do code coverage in your project?
No.
What is a good percentage of code coverage?
I don't know.
Is it 75, 83, 99? So that now is the situation we are in. We think of code by developers as something deterministic, good code, bad code, whatever. And code generated by AI is non-deterministic. It is in some percentage good. So I think logically what's going to happen is in all those use cases where we can say something, the equivalent of 75% is good enough, those will be the use cases where AI will heavily grow. In the cases where you actually need 100%, that would be next to impossible to have unsupervised AI deliver the solution. Now, how long is going to take that? For it to happen, for companies to realize it, for the hype of I'm gonna fire all my software engineers because they cost me so much money and get AI to do it, 10 times faster. I have no idea. But we certainly will see that. We're actually seeing it now. There are companies doing this. There are companies going back, by the way, who did fire software engineers and now rehiring them back. So yeah, there's going to be a wave because businesses are businesses. They are driven by two things, like profit and cost optimizations, right? They will try. Most of them will fail. Some of them will succeed. Some of them will follow those who appear to be successful. So I wouldn't predict what's going to happen, how long it's going to last. But I think ultimately it's going to balance it out somewhere where we, in a situations of software development where we can afford that non-deterministic approach, AI will play much bigger role, and in cases where you need to be precise, there will be more developer focus. If I have to guess, that would be my guess.
Cool. In preparing for this, I did some reading about how we're going to interact with AI, beyond just having it, write the code for us. And I came across this interesting dichotomy. Do we write code to the API of a AI system, or do we talk to it via microservices? The idea that AI will become a subscription service, and that we'll continue to write code, and most of the code we'll write will be to make a request from whatever subscription our company is paying for. What do you think about that?
So if you ever worked with a Silicon Valley company and see the way they can acquire money, if you don't go for a subscription service, you will get so little money compared to the companies who will work for subscription service that these subscription service-based companies will certainly outrun you. So I'm 100% certain that subscription services in AI are going to be the standard at some point, because this is how you can extract the most money out of people. And to some degree also, that's a risk to some degree. If you outsource your developer confidence to a specific vendor, possibly in America, then you will create big dependencies to that. So I'm also curious to see how this will develop and how legislation around this will form. And also how copyrights of this generated code are going to be assured. But yeah, that's where I think we're going to go.
Yeah.
I have experimented with JetBrains Junior quite a bit. I was an early adopter, and I spent countless machine hours generating code with JetBrains Junior. Then when they published it, when they made an announcement that it's generally available, they gave to me as JetBrains alumni a pro license for JetBrains Junior, which I burned in one day. All the tokens I had, I burned in one day, and the way is to actually buy JetBrains Junior Ultimate, not JetBrains Junior Pro, which is even more expensive. So it is already a subscription service. But I see an interesting potential branch of future. There are many companies who have policies that they never send their code anywhere. They do not have a way, though, to not use AI. I do not see a future of the world without AI, actually. I think that all these banks and insurance companies and all other heavily regulated establishments, they will host their own AIs, like Qwen, like DeepSeek, whatever. They will have the hosted version, probably fine-tuned on their own code bases to generate more relevant code. And this is the only way how we can avoid the subscription model, at least for some companies. But for individual people, I do not see how it can't be anything, can be anything but subscriptions.
Just one thing. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and if you know the famous saying, if you have an infinite number of monkeys typing on an infinite number of typewriters, randomly pressing keystrokes, eventually all the great works of literature will be created, right? So I think
I have some good news. A mathematician has done the math and proved that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what it implies. Like, I think we are in kind of this situation with AI, because let's say our worst nightmare comes true, and AI writes all the code and whatnot. How many times it would have to write the same code? Like, why it would be, like, think about it for a second. It generates an app that does something, right? Why would you need 10,000 or 100,000 developers all over the world to run that very same reasoning on top of the very same model to generate the very same thing. Right? It's going to be just, to me, with time, it's going to be just a matter of time before we get so big pre-generated code blocks that we would in some form or shape reuse. Like, think about it. We had this conversation minutes ago. Raise your hand if in the last project that you used, in the, say, last 3 months, you used a code that sorted something, an array, a list, whatever, some sort of data, and you had to sort it out, say, alphabetically. Like, I'm pretty sure most of you, right? How many of you wrote a sorting algorithm in their life? Yeah, at the university, I guess, right? I mean, you don't think about it. You just use the language capability or a library or something. This is how we create code. I think that's literally what's going to happen with AI. We will have, at some point, something that we today called APIs or libraries or whatever, that will have most of the problems solved already. And we'll be just using those. How is that going to be provided to us, whether that's going to be through an API and we're going to pay someone money for it? Most likely. I mean, companies have learned their lessons. They know that that's the most sustainable business model, to ask you to, or rather your employer, to pay a subscription fee. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the model, but hey, who knows?
Well, I would say that usually there is a new technology, at that moment, everyone thinks that with that technology, all the humanity problems can be solved with that specific technology. So now we are using, I don't know, GPT-4, we are using OpenAI to create a loop, to iterate a stream, to create a method that connects to Postgres. Are we sure we need GPT-4 to do that? So in Hugging Face, there are more than 1 million models that we can run locally. I don't mean every developer needs to run a model locally, but for most of the use cases, that it is AI tab-assisted autocompletion mode, that it's not using chat, but autocompletion. I would say Qwen 2.5 probably is enough. So going back to the subscriptions, I think that a lot of people follow the biggest duck without asking. But eventually, people will start thinking, is this what I need? Do I need this power for the use cases that I'm doing? So it should be that we make a rational decision about AI and not follow trends, just evaluate what exactly we need and then use the tool and the model that we really need. So I assume that eventually companies will do that, and not everyone will follow subscriptions. They will follow on-premise installations or any other kind of installations, but not based on subscriptions to the big models. That's what I think.
Just one sentence. That's what, by the way, many years ago, system administrators used to say about server rooms.
Yeah. Pasha.
I disagree with the idea that we shouldn't follow trends. Recently, I made a small question in my quiz in my Twitter. I asked people, should we hire developers who are not using and not willing to use AI? And the consensus was that we shouldn't. People should be willing to use AI. When you use IntelliJ IDEA, you already use AI. Always, even if you don't have any AI assistant or something like that, there is a built-in model called Melum for full-line completion, and it is powerful enough, but it's not powerful enough for future. I'm guessing a lot of people will and should generate boilerplate code with the AI, with AIs. AI should become better for sure. In the presentation of Jonathan of AI in the code quality in AI era, there is a very interesting example of how the code generated by some model, Copilot, is not too good. It could be better. I think we could make, and we will make them better. JetBrains will make it better because they know a lot about quality of the code. They know how to do it better. But still, the majority will be subscription. The majority of things will be a subscription. And IDEA itself is a subscription with all the models included, and it has a separate subscription for Junior. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the panel one more question, and then we're going to open it up to the floor, if anybody would like to ask something. Let's consider a doomsday scenario. And the doomsday scenario is the job of Java developer, C# developer is over. It's gone. What is it replaced by? QA. That we, the next big career is validating the stuff that comes out of the AI. And even that, I wonder, well, they'll build another AI to do that. I was a big fan of the TV series Star Trek. The Next Generation, Captain Picard. And I was always fascinated, there were no computer programmers on the spaceship. Instead, the engineer would go into his office and he'd muse. If we increase the warp core by 5%, and then you'd hear somebody say, working, program complete. And then he'd rush to the captain and said, I did it. No, he didn't. Yeah, I did it. But so going back, is there a scenario where we're all going to be out of a job in the next, say, 20 years?
I honestly think that it's not a doomsday scenario. I think that doomsday scenario is when there is no QA, there are no developers, there are only users. And maybe, I don't know, CEOs of startups.
Yeah.
CEO tells AI what to do, and then users test it.
Yeah.
And it actually works. This is a doomsday scenario for us. Being a QA is actually a good job. Did it for a couple of years, would do it again.
So, I like your doomsday idea, but I think we need to kind of conclude based on what we've seen in the past. Like what you do, and I don't mean now Java developers or developers per se, like the whole world. When you have an impossible quality standards to meet, how do things end usually? By lowering the standards. So I think the doomsday for me is that's exactly that we as a society at some point will decide that for those group of people, organization, whatever, to be financially successful, we don't have to have such high quality standards or whatever. We can lower it down so the AI can meet them, right? And we're just gonna assume that whatever that thing generates, because obviously AI is going to get better and better. Like there's no question about it. They will train it, even though now the most recent conversation I heard around OpenAI is that they're running out of data on which they train models, because now you're talking billions and billions of parameters. But they overcome. Now there is another idea about synthetic data generation. I'm not sure what exactly the term is, but basically what they try to do is synthetically generate data on which the AI can be trained. Now, take a second to think about that. Now, you're training, like first you use the AI to come up with something, and then you use that something to train another AI. Like, I don't know. I mean, my point is, the doomsday for me is basically when we decide that this is just fine, right? We don't need the high standards that we hold people to. We can just hold it, to the good enough that our technology can do, right? So to me, that's going to be the doomsday.
So
So I have two childhood friends, where one is a radiologist and where one is a translator. And both of these jobs have already been affected by AI to a way larger degree. And yet both of these people are rather happy with the transformation of their jobs. Because in translation, which large language models really are good at, the job has gone from you'll get a book, an entire book, and you will translate the same sentences that you translated many, many times, again and again, and you have like a memory, a muscle that will kick in, and you will do a lot of the job without really using your brain. The job now is more that you have a pre-translation and then you refine it, which is the preferred way, and that's what we talked about before, that this might happen to programming as well, might be the thing. Right? The same goes with radiology. If you ever had to take an MRI, then you will likely have to wait 2 or 3 weeks for the result today. And that might change drastically because radiologists have long waiting queues and have to prioritize. By having a pre-evaluation, they can already take out the things that get warnings, right? Give you a diagnosis earlier and have help and get more work done. So also in IT, the state of today is that a lot of companies and governments did not digitalize services they want to digitalize. They have to prioritize. And then once they prioritize, they choose these 2 or 3 things, spend $1 billion on doing this one thing. And with AI, maybe the future project will be that instead of hiring 300 developer consultants, they might just hire 20 and then use AI to do a lot of the boilerplate. And this enables a lot of network effects where you can talk about things more easily. So I'm just positive about these doomsday scenarios. I think this is where we want to go, because I've been in charge of large teams with 100 developers, and it's hard. It's absolutely hard. You only do damage control all the way, and people like to laugh in IT about these big failing projects. But you don't have a chance. It's not doable because it's too many people. So I think if we get to resolve these projects, there will be more projects instead than fewer people working in IT. And these projects will be more successful.
Are you really ready to trust AI interpretation of your MRI?
Sorry, AI of, no, but that's the thing. It's just a pre-selection, because otherwise you will do at random, right? And the AI will do, on average, a much better job than the random selection. Often it's like you did the MRI today, and nobody even looks at your picture, right? But now the AI makes a quick scan and sees this is 95% cancer cells. And then, of course, the radiologist will look at it immediately and maybe give you 2 weeks of heads up. Or the radiologist will say, like, nah, this is an error, right?
What if the opposite happens? AI says that everything is fine, and you actually have cancer cells.
Yeah, but that's the utilitarianism in it, right? Of course, that might happen. The AI might say nothing to worry about, but if the AI said that, then you will still have to wait 2 or 3 weeks. And if no AI is used, you will still have to wait 2 weeks. And more people live thanks to AI than people die. And it's, of course, not always right. Some people might be wrongly classified, and that's horrible, and you can make discussions if AI is actually good, but the great picture is that it's an improvement.
It's interesting. It makes me think that we're all going to need AI insurance. Jonathan?
Well, I think the doomsday is going to be fixed or managed by a lot of lawyers, I think. The problem in the end comes to legal responsibilities. So, as I said in my presentation, when you do Git blame, you don't see Copilot there. You see your name. So, yes, AI can generate a lot of code, but we need someone with experience that it is rejecting or approving, and in fact, assuming the responsibility for that. For the same case that Rafael mentioned about cancer diagnosis and so on, that's a tool. Perfect. It's great as a tool, but we need a doctor there to certify things. Recently, I heard about some issues with truck drivers following Google Maps directions and ending up in streets that the truck was stuck, just because they were following blindly, because that became a commodity. That's, for me, the doomsday is when something becomes a commodity. I always use this analogy. When I started using Google Maps, it was a two-step task. So I asked to go one destination, so I checked the route. So sometimes I said, come on, there's a better way, because I know some shortcuts. Come on, I'm local, so I know. Now, I just tell my car, home. And it's an interesting experience. Usually it's like, why? I mean, this is nonsense. Well, sometimes it's also the other way around, because the other day I did that and I said, come on, I'm local, there's a better way. But it's a street closed. So Google knew, but I didn't know. So sometimes it's that way. But we are losing our ability because we are making these things a commodity. So when we make AI a commodity, and maybe we lower down the expectations or the quality just because it's easier and cheaper, that's the doomsday. Let's expect, well, I'm talking because I'm here, let's expect that Europe regulates that with certifications and organizations regulating the use of AI and the validation for biases and the validation of results, and that companies are responsible for what they deliver. That's how I see it.
I remember times when people said that you should be able to write valid, correct Java code in Notepad. You shouldn't be dependent on idea. This world doesn't exist anymore. I love when something becomes a commodity.
Great. So we have Mr. Mike. Do any of you have any comments or questions? There we go. Let's start here.
Hello, I'm Troyan Momkov. In 5 years, the prediction is that we'll have artificial general intelligence, AGI. And I want to challenge you to think the following scenario. Imagine this AGI will obey the first law of Isaac Asimov, that the robots or the AGI cannot hurt people. So imagine this AGI can do something good for us. For example, they can improve our lives without we knowing it is doing it. For example, it can go in GitHub and improve a library, commit and so on, make new versions of libraries. It can understand that we need a new software product and design and develop this product without we knowing that. And this is in our domain, but it can also do that with the cars, with the food, with the medicines, everything. And yeah, I just want...
What's the question, though?
The question is, how do you see the world in this, in 5-10 years, let's say, if we have this context? Thank you.
Go ahead.
I think that the first thing AGI will try to do, if it obeys the first law of Asimov, it will try to create communism, because it's objectively an amazing system as soon as you can build it, because anyone can do whatever they want. For example, I love programming, so I can do programming. My son likes to draw, he can draw, and of course, it will be deeply imperfect, and this communism will fail, and it will be anarchy and capitalism and so on, and AI won't save us. Sorry.
I think when we have general intelligence, that's the least change we will observe is how we program. I think then the world will change to a degree that we cannot comprehend. Then that said, it's like, I think the same predictions about this that are made today are the same predictions like about self-driving cars that are just around the corner. I think this is nothing I expect to see in my lifetime still, until I maybe see it.
I agree with that. And one thing to consider is, because I really love people talking about Gen AI, yeah, and even superhuman, whatever. Like, if we have that, that essentially means we have a species that's equal to us. And that species, well, I mean, let's talk about, like, not super, but like general. So if we have a species, a different species that's equal to us, they will demand rights, like we do. Right? So I think we will be in a situation none of us is able to imagine at this point. So with all the excitement about, like, whatever Sam Altman said, I think, like, with 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever years, like, with all the excitement about that, like, think about that, because that's literally the same scenario as alien species landed now on Earth. And I think a lot of people imagine this not ending well.
It's funny to hear the word general intelligence. I'm concerned as a species, we don't have it yet either. So, you know, waiting for an AI to have it, how are we going to recognize? Anyways, is there any other questions?
I wanted to mention
that,
please,
sorry.
In these days, what we need is philosophy. If you use philosophy, you will answer to that question very easily. It's impossible to follow those rules. Everything in life is subjective. So that's impossible that situation becomes a reality, ever. With philosophy, you can deny everything of that. It's impossible.
Any action will harm people, actually. So.
No harming anyone, it's impossible. So again, this AGI making things, and always remember, AI is based on past data, on past experiences. So, well, but we have a damage in our brain, that it is creativity, that it is being full, and that's why we've reached this point at time. Yeah, that's what I think.
Sadly, we only have enough time for one more comment and question.
Thank you. Hi guys, Ivo. I'm a speaker actually. I couldn't attend everybody's lectures, but those who attended were great. Thank you for answering. I've been using AI tools for different reasons, like for front-end generation, for back-end generation. I've used Cursor, Copilot, Juni recently. And what I've noticed with SaaS in general is that basically you pay for something that's not really available always, or sometimes it's slow, sometimes you wait. What I find out, because I'm an engineer, for context, I'm an engineer for 15 years, I know architecture, I've done front-end, back-end, some data engineering stuff. Their initial prompts are pretty bad, so like you get big files, you get no separation of concerns, you know, like all those problems. You can kind of try and prompt it, it kind of tries to escape from it. Right. But what I've noticed is like the bill stacks up to like 100, 200, 300 euros per month, let's say. And that's because usually models can be like smaller models and distilled, right? You know, like you have models that are agents for specific reasons. They're smaller and they can be used. So I've been thinking of like buying project digits, like it's the new NVIDIA thing. And I've been thinking maybe in the future we can have really small distilled, pretty going deep models, and we as engineers can use it for different purposes, like for an image, for front-end, for back-end, for Java, for whatever. Do you think it's a good idea to have like a local one and not be dependent on big tech? Because I've seen this with XGS, like they were like licenses for 200 euros, you write code and in 3 years they say, yeah, 2,000 euros, and then you're dependent on them.
Yes.
Thank you.
So you've all got 30 seconds to wrap this up.
I will answer with one sentence. Like, I remember someone asked me that something similar to that like about a year ago, and I said that what I envision is that small language models, small models in general, will in the future be embedded in some way in programming languages or runtime environments or whatever the infrastructure is for that particular thing. So I think that's literally what's going to happen. We'll have more of those small models who solve particular problems. They will be shipped with the runtimes, with the languages, with whatever the infrastructure is at the time. And that doesn't mean the large language models will go away, but
Yeah, I think I agree with him. And also Pasha mentioned that. So Juni comes with a small language model already. So we are already using those small language models. So I assume that in the future, yes, it will be more a chain of small language models for a specific part, and maybe an LLM for the conversational thingy. But that's how I see it.
I have nothing to add.
Okay, just if you remember when cloud services came along, how prices increased since the first days, we'll see the same with language models, because you can already see in the stock prices of big tech companies that AI data centers became so expensive that it impacts them negatively. So there's already now a big pressure to increase price, and I think we'll easily see a 10 times. So, and that has to be kept in mind if you consider the usefulness of AI in development and in general in the future.
So, thank you all. I hope we haven't depressed you too much, or maybe we've excited you. AI is here. We can't ignore it. We're going to have to live with it. So thank you all for coming, and if you want to talk to any of us, come up here after we shut down.
Yes, huge applause, Mr. Ken Fogel, for the moderation. It's pretty awesome. Thank you so much. Let's thank everybody. Milan, thank Milan.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank Jonathan.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Yay. Thank you, Pasha. Applause.
Thank you. Thank you. See you around.
Yes, and thank you, Raphael.
Thanks, and thanks to the organizers.
Thank you. So did you, once again, did you like the format? You like the format? Awesome. By the way, thank you, Sasha, for helping with the microphone. Thank you.